Just over a year ago, I was introduced to this beautiful narrative poem, The Lady of the Lake by Sir Walter Scott, on a visit to Scotland with my mum and my brother for my mum's 60th birthday. We took a boat trip across Loch Katrine, which is a prominent setting in this poem, and it was so incredibly beautiful and magical that I couldn't wait to read the poem. So that same night, I downloaded the poem. It is free and available in the public domain. And I thought it might be fun for my family and I to read the poem aloud and to spend some time trying to figure out what it means. Well, of course, my idea of fun is probably a little bit nerdier. Okay, a lot nerdier than some other people's idea of fun. And so my mum and my brother fell asleep within 5 minutes, and I was engrossed in the poem for over an hour. We carried on this routine every night of the trip, and every night without fail, my mum and my brother fell asleep. So it became a bit of a running family joke that the combination of my dulcet tones and the words of this poem are better than a sleeping pill. So when I came back to Colorado, I threatened to record The Lady of the Lake for my mum and my brother so that they could continue their nightly listening. But of course, life took over. So fast forward a year to Christmas of this year, Christmas 2020, and my mum bought me this book, Dancing by the Light of the Moon by Giles Brandreth. And in this book, he describes how memorizing poetry can be really good for your brain. And there's also a ton of really beautiful, old, funny poems in here that's well worth a read. So I love a good challenge, and I thought I could combine the idea of recording The Lady of the Lake with perhaps memorizing The Lady of the Lake. And I have started to do so. I've memorized the first 3 verses, and I'm following what Giles Brandreth says to do, what he recommends, which is to memorize 2 lines every day. And it is my intention that I will memorize and record each verse, 1 verse at a time. Now, I would love to memorize the entire poem from start to finish, but it is very, very long. And if I'm being realistic with work and with my doctoral studies, I probably don't have time or the capacity to fit all of this in my brain with everything else that's going on. So I'm going to memorize and record it verse by verse, although this first recording will be 3 verses because it's sort of like the foreword. And then I'm going to organize them in a playlist so that should you wish to listen to it from start to finish, that's if I ever make it to the finish, then you should be able to do that. I want to acknowledge that Sir Walter Scott is Scottish, or was Scottish. This poem is Scottish. It's set in Scotland, and my accent certainly doesn't do that justice, nor was it probably the intention of Sir Walter Scott to hear it read by an English girl. So apologies for that, but there's not really very much I can do about my accent, and you certainly don't want to hear me try to do a Scottish accent because that would be truly terrible. So I have a couple of solutions to this problem. The first one is that, as you can see, I am outside. I currently live in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and I love spending time out here. I hike and climb all of the hills and mountains that you can see behind me. So I thought that if you get tired of my accent and my voice, perhaps the beautiful scenery can be a welcome distraction. My second suggestion is that if you're enjoying the poem and the story, but not my voice, perhaps you can imagine the sultry Scottish tones of someone like Jamie Fraser from Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series, and him reciting the poem to you with his finely chiseled jaw and his flowing red wavy hair flowing in the breeze. Perhaps that could make it more tolerable. I only have one thing left to say, and that is good night, Mum and Steve, and sweet dreams. Canto first. The Chase. Harp of the North, that mouldering long hast hung on the wych elm that shades St. Fillan's spring, and down the fitful breeze thy numbers flung, till envious ivy did around thee cling, muffling with verdant ringlet every string. O minstrel harp, still must thine accents sleep, mid rustling leaves and fountains murmuring? Still must thy sweeter sounds their silence keep, nor bid a warrior smile, nor teach a maid to weep? Not thus, in ancient days of Caledon, was thy voice mute amid the festal crowd, when lay of hopeless love or glory won, aroused the fearful or subdued the proud. At each according pause was heard aloud thine ardent symphony, sublime and high. Fair dames and crested chiefs attention bowed, for still the burden of thy minstrelsy was knighthood's dauntless steed and beauty's matchless eye. Oh, wake once more! How rude soe'er the hand that ventures o'er thy magic maze to stray. Oh, wake once more, though scarce my skill command some feeble echoing of thine earlier lay. Though harsh and faint and soon to die away, and all unworthy of thy nobler strain. Yet if one heart throb higher at its sway, the wizard note has not been touched in vain. Then silence be no more, enchantress, awake again.